All right, all right. Here we go. What drives a successful congressman to risk it all by challenging a sitting president from his own party? And why does he feel vindicated even after losing everything? You can't make this shit up. Let's go, everyone. All right. This comes from an article I read from Politico. Dean Phillips, former Representative Dean Phillips, speaks candidly about his presidential bid against Joe Biden, the cost of challenging the party, orthodox, and why Congress left him deeply disillusioned. From fundraising demands to concentrated power, his stark revelations expose a system he believes fails both lawmakers and citizens. Dean Phillips, everyone, had the opportunity to sit down with Politico upon his last hours as the representative from Minnesota, one of several representatives from Minnesota. And Dean Phillips says that he feels vindicated and that he believes, as the challenger during this last primary election cycle, was the right thing to do. And that even though he feels that Congress is deeply broken, he could have delivered more for his constituents. And that's why it's so important to focus on fixing the problems. Specifically, and I quote, in regards to Democrats, he says, "We are totally devoid of leadership. We are rudderless, totally devoid of leadership." Dean Phillips, who I admired, and I was hoping to see him campaign in Florida. However, the Democrats in Florida pretty much shut down the presidential preference primary in March of 2024. And therefore, 55-year-old Dean Phillips did not have opportunity to show Floridians what he was all about, what he was willing to do for America, and that there was an alternative to Joe Biden as the presidential nominee for the Democrats. No matter what he says, he believed that there was a role for himself in the debates over the future of the Democratic Party. Dean Phillips offered a fresh approach for the Democrats. He's 55 years old. He's a wealthy businessman. And he believes in the tenets of the Democratic message and agenda. He did not rely on the DCCC, the Democratic Congressional Commission, whatever. This was a personal decision that he made. There was no ultimatum for him to retire. This was his decision. He believes that there's an opportunity to be more effective outside of Congress than inside of Congress, especially when 50% of his time is consumed by fundraising. And remember, representatives serve 2-year terms. So once you're elected and you're sworn in December, you're right back at fundraising for the next term. You spend half your time fundraising. There's got to be a better way. And being consumed with the requirements of fundraising to stay relevant, to be reelected, helped him make that decision because it allowed very little time for him to build relationships, to study issues, and to plan strategies. That's not effective government. Being the representative becomes a job in raising money, in fundraising. What happened to legislating? Dean Phillips stated that he never, ever in his lifetime spent so much time. And remember, he's a businessman, a successful businessman. He never spent so much time and energy doing so much and saw so little affected by it. And it's just not him, it's his colleagues also. All that work and to have very little to show for it. We're talking about the people who write the legislation. Well, we think so, not the lobbyists, but the people who are responsible for legislation, the people who are responsible for guiding our government and the rules and policies and laws that make America America. Most of Americans want their leaders to lead, want their representatives to represent their interests, not the interests of those people who are paying for the fundraisers, the dinners, the mailers, the campaigns. They want to be represented and they want their voice at the table. There were fellow Democrats who did not care for Dean Phillips running for the Democratic nomination. And he was surprised by some of their sentiments. Loyalty runs deep. Loyalty in the process runs deep. And unfortunately, Dean Phillips felt the brunt of that. The Democrats are loyal to a fault. Joe Biden was a presumptive nominee, regardless of what people knew about his health, particularly his mental health. They stood with their guy because he said he was going to run again and that he was the only one who could beat Donald Trump. They stood with him until they stopped. The physical decline in President Biden was real. And his approval numbers were extremely low, historically low for a sitting president who, you know, in Democrats' eyes, had a great economy, a very good economy, and things were good for the Democrats. However, it didn't work out. And Dean Phillips says that, his vindication that the Democrats had better candidates available to run for the nomination and they failed to support them. It's a unsatisfied vindication for him, seeing how things played out. Biden dropping out in July, Kamala Harris being coronated the nominee. Dean Phillips is very disappointed in his colleagues and in the party, and saddened that he's vindicated for doing the right thing. This is what Dean Phillips says about what the party should do to win in 2026 and 2028. Again, let's make this very clear. He says that the Democrats are totally devoid of leadership, rudderless, completely rudderless. If there is a leader or a de facto leader, who is that person? What they need to do, and I'll take this straight out of the article from Politico. Listen. Listen. Listen to the people who are out there talking to the voters every day. Not the folks that assume what the voters are thinking, what their kitchen table issues are, but the people who understand, who are out there every day, trying to hear their kitchen table issues and bring them forth. Dean Phillips said, this is not rocket science. It's not. It really isn't. There is a better mousetrap to understand why Democrats did not heed the message of the Democratic Party, why the Democratic Party is bleeding its supporters. They're leaving. And America as a whole are not identifying with the Democratic agenda and message. More people voted. Let me put it this way. More people did not vote than they did vote for Kamala Harris or voted for Donald J. Trump. More people sat it out. They said, no, thank you. How do you address that? How do you address that more people decided this is not important to me? Dean Phillips says, hey, the Republican Party have claimed the mantle of the working class. The Democrats were once known for working for the middle class. How did that happen? Because the Republican Party met people where they were at their kitchen tables, more of them to win the election. They met people where they were at, more of them than the Harris Walls campaign met them where they were at. Whether they tapped into that part of the brain that centered on their feelings, how they feel about the economy, what they think is going on with the economy, or their tactics. Sure, yes, let me address it right now. Sure, misogyny, racism. This is America. It's always going to be woven into the fabric of our society. There's other places outside of America that is even worse. It's always going to exist because we are humans. However, Democrats need to prioritize other things like people, like our citizens, their needs, their wants, their issues. Prioritize people over tenure, as we saw with AOC being snubbed for the Oversight Committee in the House, the Oversight Committee chairmanship. We have to prioritize people, tenure. Why are we looking at Democrats? Why are you looking at tenure over talent? Why are you focused on identity politics over pragmatic problem solving? You got to stop doing that, Democrats, to become relevant again. Simple as that. It takes leadership. It takes a willingness to step away, to question your loyalty, and value people, value relationships over those things that did not secure the White House, the Senate, and the House of Representatives. There is a generational change. It's happening. And Democrats have an opportunity to talk to the next generation of Democrats. Have them lead, have them take the forefront. However, again, we're seeing tenure over talent. We'll see how the state party here in Florida, the Florida Democratic Party, let's see how they move in the election of their leadership. Because right now, the Florida Democratic Party is irrelevant. Something has to give. Hand it over to the young folks. Let them build this out. Mentor them. Give them a decade, because it's going to take another decade. Barring anything catastrophic, it's going to take another decade or more for the Republicans to not have this stranglehold over government. It's going to take a decade for the Democrats to be relevant. Oh boy. I admire Representative Dean Phillips, or former Representative Dean Phillips. I understand that, if he knew back then what he knows now about how consuming the job was, maybe he would have thought about something different. Also, for future candidates for office, regardless if it's for Congress or for county commissioner, Dean Phillips says candidates need to understand the different mechanisms in government to affect change. Understand those things, what it takes to bring bills to the floor, what democracy requires at whatever level of government. Understand those mechanisms. Build relationships in and out of your particular legislative body. In closing, I just want to say that, again, I hope that Representative Phillips stays in the political light, that he goes around the country and galvanizing citizens to expect better of their legislators, of their representatives. Dean Phillips' journey from party insider to presidential challenger revealed a deep crisis in the Democratic leadership, where institutional loyalty often trumped necessary reform, leaving even successful lawmakers feeling powerless to effect meaningful change. They were elected to serve. I'm David Washington. This is We Can't Make This Shit Up. There's a lot of things on its way, a lot of changes for the better. Until then, please like, share, hit the notification button, comment, We want to hear what you have to say. We'll see you the next time.